Hello everyone. In this section, we are going to discuss about how the data calculation and formatting function works in the AQL. We will discuss about data retrieval function, some of the data retrieval function examples. We will see how to define time setting that are passed to the AQL query. We will understand AQL subqueries. We will see how the available saved searches can help in understanding the AQL queries and writing the AQL queries. And we will write a couple of AQL queries which can help in day-to-day activities. Just to quickly recap on what we understood in our earlier section, we understood how to write the AQL queries using AQL interface. We discussed about the structure of AQL query, how the query is defined, how to write the select statement. We discussed about group by clause, having clause, and the different filters which we can use along with the logical and comparison operators. Now talking about the data calculation, we can use Arial query language, calculation and formatting functions on search results that are retrieved from Arial database. Let's say I want to concat the results, and how to do that? We have a concat function which concatenates all past strings into one string. So select concat user. We can see a colon which we are using to concat this username, source IP and destination, and we are going to limit this for 5 rows. The moment we use this AQL query, we get the results which are concatenated by the colon. If you want to return all lowercase representation of your data, you can use lower function. Lower returns username and log source names in the lowercase. So let's see how to use the lower function in our AQL query. Select lower username lower, then log source name, which will be pulled from log source ID and from events. You can see the loaded results shows the username and log source name in lowercase. Now you have the requirement where you need the username and log source name in uppercase. You can very well do that as well. We have function called upper. You can use upper function to achieve the required results. AQL aggregate functions helps us to aggregate and manipulate the data that we need to extract from the Arial database. So we have already seen such aggregate functions like group by, having, count, and also you can use unique count. Now, there are some data retrieval functions as well which we can use in our AQL query. Some of the examples being application name, asset host name, asset property, asset user, etc. So if you want to get the asset name using the source IP, you can use this asset name. The query can be select asset name source IP from the events. In my environment, I don't have any asset name associated with source IP. That's why it is resulting into NA. However, in your environment, you will surely see the asset name as a result. What if I want to search for the domain name by the domain ID? We have a function named domain name. And how to use this function? Select source IP, username, domain name, which will be using domain ID to get the domain name, and we need this in a column domain name from the events. This search will load all the domain names from the events. Likewise, if you want to get the host name from the process ID, you can very well frame the AQL query as select host name, which uses process ID to get the host name from the events. Let us understand how to define the time settings that are passed to AQL query. The select statement supports an Arial time option which overrides the time settings. We can limit the time period for which an AQL query is evaluated by using the clause and functions like start, stop, last, now, past time, etc. So how to use the past time for a 1 day ago? It's a simple query. Using this function past time, select star from events start past date for 1 day ago, and we can see the result for all the past events for last 1 day. Now let's take up some of the examples which we can use to define the date formats. So in a date format, we have start time. In start time, we have the attributes. So the YYMMDD gives us the year, month and date, and we can also get a specific time using H and A. So if we want to get the month in a numerical value, we can use MM twice. If you want the month to be fetched or the month to be displayed in characters, that is December for an example, we can give 3M. That is, in case if I want a date format to be written as a December DEC, I will give 3M's instead of 2M. If I have a requirement wherein I want a particular week of the year, I want which week it is from an entire year, we can use option WW. On a similar way, if you want which is the day of this year, so the current day, if you want to know which is this day, then surely a capital DD is a switch. If you want to see the time, we can use capital H. In similar way, as per your requirements, you can use various options. Now let us understand what is AQL subquery. You can use an AQL subquery as a data source that is referred to or searched by the main query. We can use from or in clause to refine AQL query by referring to the data that is retrieved by the subquery. The nested select statement in parenthesis is a subquery. So whenever you write any subquery, you need to write your subquery in parenthesis. The subquery is run first and it provides the data that is used by the main query. Let's try and understand this using a simple query. I'm writing a query as select username from, in parenthesis we are going to write a subquery as select from events where username is not null last 60 minutes. So as we mentioned, the subquery which is written in parenthesis will be executed first. The result for select from event where username is not null for last 60 minutes will be executed first and will provide results to the main query, that is select username. On a similar way, if we want to make it more specific, let's say you want to order it by username to limit this search for, let's say, 30 rows, and the username should be displayed in descending order. You can append the existing query with order by username DESC, that is for descending, and limit 30. The moment you load the search, the subquery will be executed first and then the order by execution will be performed. Now let us see how we can get the reference from the available saved searches. So under the log activity, searches, edit search, you will see the available saved searches. From this available saved searches, you can click on any available saved searches and you have the option of show AQL. So you can see how this existing search is framed and you can very well refer this search. So now let us try and frame a couple of very easy searches which can be a help for our day-to-day monitoring. Taking an example of disk usage per partition in GBs. So this query can be framed as I have added in the advanced search field, and once we click on this search, we will find the disk usage per partition. If you closely look at the select statement, we are using some of the already available metric elements. We are grouping it by element and then gigabytes as well, and then ordering it as a descending order. Right, so we want to see what is the maximum consumption of the partition first, and then we want to limit the search for last 2 days. So whatever clauses, whatever conditions we discussed so far, we can make a use of all these things and then we can frame our query to fetch the results from the event. Similarly, if you want the EPS rate by the log source, you can easily frame a simple query which will give you the information. So here we are going to fetch the log source name using log source ID. Log source name is a function, data retrieval function, right? So if you remember, we just discussed about the data retrieval functions as well, and then we are grouping it by log source ID, and the search is for last 2 hours. So once we hit search for this AQL query, we will get the results. This AQL query results you can save as a save criteria, which can be very well used to display it on a dashboard or can be used in creating report. So as we discussed so far, there is this option, there is this facility to write the aerial queries to fetch the data from the advanced search field. We no need to remember all the parameter syntaxes. The moment you start keying in the characters, the values, the help options will make AQL writing very easy. A little hands-on, little experience will help to write more SQL queries for SOC monitoring